The PVM fans are now connected to CPU, and the 2-pin synchronization goes back to the ACPI controller. The ARGB of the case fans are on the side. That's the case fans. The fans of the CPU go to Easy Connect there. And the light bar, and here that RGB is directly connected to the lower slot, and these are interconnected, and these interconnected are synchronized as output to the ACPI PVM controller. The rainbow color fragmentation and order is apparently exactly the same as the MSI Chroma does. The RAMs, the system fans, and the RGB is apparently completely the same as the RGB bar, and the small RTX lights. These synchronize exactly the same as they were before when they were connected to the board itself. I had to reorder the hexa network of the case PWM fans because the lowest fan was on the connection side and I wasn't able to reach to the CPU fan header, but I might eventually try to disconnect the 2-pin synchronization from the ACPI controller and connect the PWM directly to the case fan or somewhere below there. Might try that out before I get the thermistor sensor, which I can put in the back of there, that waited tons of times and then went out in 22. That's super annoying. The thermistor sensor goes there, and that should activate one of the super IO chips. I don't know where these are, maybe the big one. I don't know when it's the big one. It's currently deactivated and it's activating when you put on the thermistor node in. Just a small sensor, the thermistor sensor, 10K thermistor sensor on the output, and the huge chip apparently goes on when that's the super IO chip. So that super IO chip is currently not activated, but I can't really explain why the error codes, what the error codes are, and what happened to the latest BIOS. And when the thermistor probe is installed and the super IO chip is activated, the system should go better. And I ordered a new ACPI hub, which does contain a thermistor inside, which that one seemingly doesn't have, but I'm really questioning that if they put out the thermistor out of that ACPI PWM hub, because that has the synchronization pins like the ones before didn't had, but that does have still a traditional ARGB PWM output on the sides, and the new ones have universal ones. So these new ones which have universal ones are actually able to interlink like these lights into the board and then use the universal for synchronization reasons, and these actually have a thermistor node inside. So when you put these lights, for example, into that slot and then synchronize it to the PWM hub, there's a thermistor which actually earthens the signal, so the PWM system is not able to send electricity like from there to the ATX to the power supply, so it's going to sleep. That's a 850 watts power supply, and the water cooling is a thermal white frozen vision 240, and the PWM, the new ones which have on this on that side a universal one or a synchronization one, ARGB, not PWM, just ARGB universal or synchronization ARGB. These actually have a thermistor inside, and when you put the thermistor inside there, usually the SoC and the Super IO and some other chips activate some features, so the processor and the RAM can actually work with it, and lots of the ATX signals from IO and PWM and stuff doesn't go from wherever the system is to that place and then into the power supply for fail-safe things, so the system freezes, or I don't know what really is happening. Usually it's said that the RAM is configuring, but the RAM configuring is necessary so the for the power supply to actually do something, and when it gets like a super IO signal to shut the fuck up and the power supply is then silent, then the RAM can't configure further, and eventually it says the RAM is not configured, that the system can boot. But the new PWM fans which have a universal output there, or synchronization one, actually have a thermistor inside, and this can take, when you put this the synchronization actually in the lower part of the board around there, can actually take these sleep signals down to the ACPI line where it usually goes, and usually it says somewhere that it can't negotiate, or it can't like give out the signals or instructions it's needing for, so it sends more signals to the power supply, so it goes offline or something, so the system stops and the RAM is blamed for not being configurable, which I don't really know where that comes from, but these new ones have a thermistor ones, and these can actually answer these calls, and these PWM fans which can actually answer these signals are very new, basically on the market, maybe 2 months, while the system which does that is about since 6 years or something active like that, and there's no PWM argumentation or framework inclusion or something active, and it's basically doesn't exist, just the RAM is not configurable. And that's true, since the debug code says it and everyone says it. The RAMs can't be configured. The RAMs are a problem, a very big problem. And I get a new PWM hub system maybe this week, maybe tomorrow, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. I don't know how long the shipping does take currently on AliExpress China. But I get the new one, and Gemini confirmed me that in my new one is actually a thermistor inside, and I get actually a thermistor, so the Super I/O chip will be activated once the thermistor is there, and maybe I can back connect the synchronization from the PWM system of the case fans and to the CPU, and the 2-pin synchronization to the new PWM fan hub, and the instructions which are there, and apparently from the RGB lightning system, it's like hectic, like it's coming from the RAM or from cache, from L3 cache, or from the DRAM, and that's hectic signals, and it's interrupting a lot, and that goes partially to the power supply or comes from the power supply. I don't really know. I don't have a debugging system which can tell me where signals come from, or otherwise I would actually look where these RGB signals come from. But these fans are connected together. These 4 fans, 3 fans there, 1 fan there, these are connected, and the middle one I think goes there, and the other ones are in cycle connected with a 2-pin synchronization also in cycle, and then connected to PWM in right there. So the fans itself, the RGB, the fans are either way sending the signals, or these get sent into the PWM system. It's not really clear. The DRAM is not configurable, and but when I would be able to scan where these signals come from, I would literally do that. That would be really helpful, but I have no idea how to do that. Do I take a voltmeter and connect it somewhere there? Maybe that would help, but I'm not super that electro voltage aware to find it out. But the system doesn't boot, and I actually did connect the PWM fan wrong, since the 2 pins PWM input are connected to the PWM system, which is connected to the CPU fan, which is theoretically okay, but the CPU fan header sends also the signals to these, and these are not connected to the output there. So that's synchronizing to the PWM system and to the CPU fan header, but has no output synchronization. So the synchronization phase is actually unclear, and the mainboard does not say what it does, how it's configured, or what the prerequisites are. There's nothing of a handlet or something inside the box of the main board where it says which PVM solutions are supported, which are excluded or not supported, or how it behaves with PVM fan situations. But these 3 pins, 4 case fans connected to each other, put into the CPU fan header, where the PVM systems usually say they should be inputted to the CPU fan header, and that is actually doing. I have connected the PVM into the CPU fan header, but the 2 pins of the CPU fan header are synchronized to the 3 pins which are connected to the fans, which are also connected to the CPU fan header, but that doesn't working. So there is a synchronization gap, noise sickness or something inside the system, and I'm not 100% sure if I actually connected the system right. I have to clearly say that out loud, but there's clearly a problem inside the PVM system, and I would like actually to know what problem that is and how that behaves to the RAMs, if the RAMs are actually at fault for not being configurable, so the PVM system does have noise sickness, or if I am the reason I have not actually listened to the handlets correctly and actually have not connected it. Would have been better. I don't really know, but maybe you can let me know in the comments. I installed the new BIOS as you've seen, but I can't get like the system working. I have the system on 2200 FCLK, the mouse is freezing, and I installed Tumbleweed, I installed just Mesa, Vulkan, overlay and GSC, then restart the computer, and it's not booting into the login anymore. And I can't use the Tumbleweed installation just after installing like Vulkan Mesa and stuff. So the complete system is complete garbage. The RAM don't configure, the graphics card don't initialize, the PVM fans is flickering. But the RAMs look really cool, I have to say that. The RGB of the fans are nicely set. The configuration looks completely different, takes a tons of times and then fails out at 22. That's RAM configuration, I think. So when you have any idea, when I get the thermistor and the new SPI fan hub, I will retry some combinations and see if the new ones does support or any new features or something, and then make a new video showing what the debug codes are. When I get like FCLK 2400 or 3000, 2800 going on, could be working, since the thermistor sensor actually does activate the Super IO chip, and I think the Super IO chip on that board is actually the big one, which is right behind there, like the big one, which could be a CPU in a laptop, is actually the Super IO chip, and that's just active when the thermistor node and sensor is connected. So that's probably bugging out the system a lot, but yeah, can be that I get the thermistor sensor in 3 days, probably this week. So I will be reporting. I have still Rocky 10 Linux installed. I can play games with no problem. The system looks really cool to look at. The RAMs look really nicely lit. The light bar is really fantastically synchronized to the whole system. I really like how that light bar looks. does give a really nice touch to the Intel Arc graphics card, which has like a midnight blue metallic or something like flat metallic. But when the rainbow light synchronization looks in, then it's like oil in the water. That's really fantastic. I really like how that the reflection on the card looks. The developers and the engineers on that system did a really great job. So